Hey, good morning. This is Jared Smith, Superintendent of Schools at South Tama County. We tried out on Zoom to have a little question answer session, but we're moving over to Facebook Live here. So I'm going to give people a few minutes to hop on and then go ahead and type out their questions in the dialogue there. I'll go ahead, like I said, give you a few minutes to hop on to migrate over from Zoom and to ask your questions in terms of our return to learn plan. And while you're hopping on there, I'm going to go ahead and just read off the decisions that were made yesterday at the school board meeting. So let me pull it up real quick here. And again, I'm sorry for the delay. We were going to try to do Zoom and we had some issues over there. So we're just going to migrate over to Facebook Live. And so I'm going to give people a few more minutes to hop on over. School board. I'm just going to pull up the decisions that we made yesterday. Okay. I'm going to read off what was decided yesterday, and then I'm going to open it up to your questions here. And the reason for this question answer session was really because, after yesterday's school board meeting, we received a lot of emails and a lot of questions here about what the plan is in terms of the A-Day, B-Day model, some questions about the virtual learning, some questions about masks. So I wanted to do the best I could just to answer those questions for you. So again, I'm going to just read off just a quick summary of what was decided during yesterday's school board meeting. And then I'm going to give you an opportunity to type away your questions in the comments, and I'll do the best I can to answer those questions. So if you know of somebody who wants their questions asked, feel free to pass along, shoot them a text or invite them to come on here real quick so we can answer those questions for you. Okay, during yesterday's school board meeting, the board did decide to approve the A-Day, B-Day hybrid model of instruction to begin the year. So when we say A-Day, B-Day, I want to be careful because in the plan we have is for during week 1, the A group of students, the one group of students would be in school Monday through Wednesday. And then the B group, the second group of students, would be in school Thursday and Friday. And then the next week, we would switch. So the following week, A students would be in school on Monday and Tuesday. And then B students would be in school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that essentially it's a 50%. Students will be in school about 50% of the time. The reason we do that is because we want to limit the number of students who are in our buildings at one time. And the other reason behind that is when you get into the individual classrooms, that would allow for social distancing within those rooms. So instead of having 20 kids in a room, you would have essentially 10 or less kids in a room. And that would ensure that we have those 6 feet social distancing rules between the students. And that would just, that way it follows the safety recommendations that we've been given from the CDC, legal counsel, and Tama County Health. So along with this plan then, parents do have the option, if they want their student or students to stay at home, they would have a virtual option where the students could stay home 100% of the time, and we would teach them virtually. So again, let me say that again. There's going to be 2 options for our parents starting August 24th, and we're going to talk about timelines here in a little bit, but you can either choose to enroll your student in the hybrid option, which is 50% of the time they'll be in school, 50% of the time they'll be at home. Or you can choose the virtual option, which is students will be parents will choose for their students to be taught virtually, so that means they will not come to the school building until all this passes. Some people have asked about, like, if you commit to virtual learning, how long will that last for? We haven't finalized that, but right now we're thinking that would last for the first quarter. And again, I'll talk about timelines a little bit later, but the expectation is that if you commit to virtual learning as a parent, then you would be enrolling in virtual learning for the first quarter. Great question, Danielle, about what the virtual instruction will look like. If you could give me, let me come back to that. I think that's a great question, and honestly, that's a question we don't have all the details ironed out at this point. But let me come back to that here in a minute. I'm going to summarize the last few key decisions, and then I'm going to come back to these questions. A couple things I want to share about face coverings while we've started is that really the guidance we've been given is that our legal counsel we work hand in hand with our school legal firm, and they firmly believe like it is reasonable for us to ask our staff to wear face coverings throughout the day. So we're going to be pretty firm with our staff that face coverings, whether it be masks or face shields, will be required of staff members, and right now we're saying in most situations. Requirements will be relaxed when staff are isolated or socially distanced from other staff members. So requirements will be more strict with our in settings with students. So again, the key point there is face coverings will be required of staff members in most situations. Requirements will be relaxed with staff or when staff are isolated or socially distanced with other staff members. So that's as far as, and again, we're going to iron out those details in the weeks to come, but I want our community and our staff to know that we're looking at a required face coverings for our staff members. In terms of students, we're also using the word required, and we're saying required when entering or exiting the building, and also during passing period times in high traffic areas. We want to be a little bit loose with the requirements of masks when students are socially distanced during classroom instructional time. So the nice thing about having 50% capacity in our buildings and in our rooms is we feel like we can socially distance our students in the instructional setting. So kind of when we kind of give and take on what we're doing, some of the give is that when students do get in those classrooms when they're socially distanced because the buildings are at half capacity, then we believe that the students will have an opportunity to take off the masks and maybe put them in a bag or put them somewhere safe, and then actually have a chance to be engaged in that learning from the teacher without having to wear the masks. So I'm just going to read a couple more things, and the questions are coming in, which is great, and I'm going to go back and try to answer those as best I can. The district is right now purchasing 3-ply face masks, and I'm not an expert at the safety here, but we've been told that 3-ply face masks are the way to go, and so we are in the process of ordering those 3-ply face masks for all students and staff members. So we've already been in contact with Ultimate Image in Toledo to get this done. So we're already ordering, I think the order's for 1,800 or maybe 1,900 face masks. So that's already been ordered there. We're going to hire a COVID tracker who's going to be somebody who can really just trace what the contact of the student or the staff who may have been exposed to COVID, and that way we have a good documentation of who all may have been exposed to COVID during a time frame. Here's the key thing to keep in mind. Our administrative team and other district leadership members are going to work hard in the coming days to develop a plan for each of the buildings that will be delivered to the school board on Monday, August 3rd. So so there's some great questions coming in. I'm gonna scroll up and try to answer the questions the best I can. And my warning to all of you, and there's 112, 113 people watching right now. My warning to you is that, I was kind of going back and forth on having this question answer session because a lot of these things still need to be ironed out. And a lot of your questions, I'm looking at them, have a few more details there than I really have at this point, but I will do the best I can. So our administrative team, like I said, is going to be working. We've got 2 meetings lined up for next Monday. One is Monday morning and one is afternoon, where our leadership team is going to get together and really divvy out and try to answer some of these questions that are popping up. So I guess for a lot of the details, I'm asking you, we're going to have to wait until August 3rd, which is, pretty typical for a lot of districts at this point. But the questions that are funneling in, these are questions that we have had before and that we're going to get you some answers on. I'm going to keep reading here and then I'm going to come back to your questions. During the week of August 3rd through 10th, we're going to provide staff, students, and the community for feedback to our plans. So here's what's going to happen is all next week, our leadership teams are going to sit down and trying to iron out this plan. We know we've got a week here to figure it out, and then the following Monday. On Monday, August 3rd, I'm going to bring this information to the school board. We're going to have some dialogue, some conversation. Some of those things that, some of the questions you have will be talked about and debated and finalized the night of August 3rd. And then during the week of August 3rd through the 10th, we're going to give another opportunity for feedback from our staff, students, and community with our plans. So today we're going to give some feedback and some questions. We've had plenty of feedback the last 3 weeks with surveys, and honestly, the decisions that we've made have really been in unison with the results of those surveys. I encourage you, we have shared those documents. I can share those again. We've shared those at both the school board meetings, but we have not made a decision that has gone against the majority of the staff and the community, their feedback. Like not a single decision has gone against the data that's in our survey data. So like I said, there's been feedback for the last 3 weeks. There was 2 school board meetings. We're doing this question answer session today. We're doing another question answer session next Monday evening. We've got leadership team, and when I say leadership team early, it's our return to learn team that will be meeting next Monday afternoon. We're going to put together those plans next week. We're going to bring it back to the school board on August 3rd. We're going to have a week of feedback August 3rd through August 10th. And then we're hoping for final board approval on August 10th. During the week of August, I think it's 10th through the 14th, then we're going to have some meetings. There's going to be some building meetings that principals are going to lead, and they will go over the information with parents that really the details, a lot of the questions I'm getting right now, we're still probably a week or 2 weeks out from getting you all those answers, but the questions you're asking are great questions. So I really wanted to make sure I laid out that timeline for you, because I just want to just say that right now I don't have all the answers to the questions that are coming in. But let me go back and let me see if I can't try to answer some of these questions for you and keep the questions coming. Again, I was hoping to do this on Zoom. That way I could actually have parents and community members actually verbally share their questions and we could have back and forth. But again, that didn't quite work out, so we migrated over to Facebook, and this is fine. So Danielle had a great question about talking about what virtual instruction will look like. And, we've talked about this in the last couple school board meetings. My goal for the next week is to we've got a team, we've got 2 different committees that are committed to doing this work, Danielle. And we've got one that's a virtual PD committee and then a curriculum committee. Our goal in the next week is to really iron out what that looks like. We've tossed around a lot of ideas. And I've talked to other districts. So some districts are recording their classes live. What I've heard from other districts is that teachers are really not sure, does that, we've never recorded classes in the past, and suddenly to record somebody doing their job suddenly opens up a whole new can of worms. So the early discussion was, well, let's just record the entire day and let's stream it. The more conversation we've had is that, there's very few jobs out there where you are recorded as you perform your job. So there's a little bit of anxiety, I'm not going to lie. And I would hate to be recorded my whole day of doing my job just because sometimes you don't get the full context if you're just recording and you can't see everything going on. So, we are thinking, Danielle, another thing that we're thinking about right now is, okay, and we've talked about this the last 2 weeks, is do we dismiss early? And we've talked about 2:00 dismissal every day, giving staff members that extra hour and a half to deliver virtual instruction to students. We would have that extra 90 minutes where, and it could be through Zoom, it could be through Google Meets, it could be uploading videos, uploading content, uploading items through Google Classroom. But we've talked about, could we use that last hour and a half of a day if the other students are gone, then really focusing on the virtual needs of our students. That's another option that's been discussed. And Danielle, the third idea that we have is, could we, so I'm just going to use use fourth grade for an example. There's fourth grade has 5 teachers, 5 core teachers. And could 4 of those teachers be the classroom teachers and the 5th teacher be that virtual teacher? That is definitely, and they would have basically their whole day freed up to think about how they could virtually teach students. So that's been a third idea that we've talked about. And let me recap those. The first idea was to record class all day and to stream it for kids. Possibility. The second option was dismissing early, which I think we're kind of leaning on doing regardless, but that way all teachers, and for that example for 4th grade, all 5 teachers would have from 2 until 3:30 to do some of the virtual teaching. Option number 3 is to free up one of the teachers to be a virtual teacher only, while the other teachers focus on classroom instruction. So those are 3 models we've talked about. The reason I'm saying those are 3 models we talked about is because we haven't quite committed to one of those models yet. But I do feel good. Like I said, we've got 2 committees that we're going to meet with them Monday afternoon, and we're going to say, come up with a plan. You've got 1 week to come up with the best plan, and that could include feedback from teachers. It could include feedback from parents. I'm not sure, but we've got 2 committees who will be tasked with what virtual instruction will look like. I hope that kind of answered your question. Feel free to keep posting questions at the bottom. So if a teacher contracts COVID, will their 2 weeks away from work be paid? So great question, Travis. Right now we do have a proclamation in place for the district that does discuss that if anybody contacts or either gets COVID or I don't remember the exact wording, but yes, we've got emergency medical leave that we adopted starting actually April 1st. And a lot of people probably don't remember that because there was so much going on, but starting April 1st, and it's still going right now, any teacher who contracts COVID will have paid time off during that time. Here's another thing to put you at ease, and I know we've got a lot of staff watching, is I've got a meeting August 5th lined up with our school district. The attorney who is assigned to our school district. He will be coming to the school district on the afternoon of the 5th to sit down with myself, Mary Bogey, Leslie Youngbear, members of STCEA. I threw an invite out to Ashley Rowie, who is the new president of STCEA, a member of the school board, and an administrator. So there's going to be like 9 of us in the room, socially distanced, but we're going to talk through making sure that we make staff-friendly decisions when it comes to COVID. So Travis, your question about getting paid to be on leave, absolutely. We already have that in place, and I can't say, I don't think we've had to use it yet. Well, actually, I take that back. I think we actually have had to some extent. I don't know if anybody actually contracted COVID, but they had to self-isolate because of some symptoms. So, yeah. So I feel like staff should feel very comfortable that we do have that. We're looking into that, and we got that covered. Jennifer Benner asks, what is recess, lunch, special classes such as art, music, before school, waiting for bus times going to look like? Okay, Jennifer, I'll be honest, like that's probably one of those questions about details that's going to be a building level decision. Recess, you're talking about elementary school, special classes. That's something that absolutely we will get to you. I don't have those answers at this moment, and I apologize if people came here looking for specifics at the building level. I've said it a couple times. We just don't. We're going to start working on that. Well, we've been working on them, and if I had Brad Schweppe on here, he could probably give you a lot of information here. But in terms of what I'm sharing, I'm really just reflecting on what was discussed yesterday and those decisions in terms of the hybrid, the virtual, the masks, that sort of thing. So Jennifer, I'm sorry, I don't have those answers right now, but remember that timeline I spoke about earlier in terms of the bringing information to the school board on August 3rd, the week of August 3rd through 10th, getting feedback, the week of 10th through the 14th, getting having meetings at each building level where some of those things will be discussed. During the Jen Thiessen, I hope I pronounced that right. During the 50% time at home, will the kids do virtual learning on those days? That's like the $1 million question right now. And that was one of the biggest concerns we had about if the parent chooses the hybrid option, the 8A BD option, what do we do with the kids who are at home, when you're not at school, when you're at home? Right now, when I'm done here, my next plan, and if anybody out there, here's a plea. If anybody out there works in local churches or local areas that I'm going to email them, but hey, you can email me. That'd be great. If anybody works in churches or the local libraries or areas where we could potentially have kids, we know we know that we need to have a place to bring some kids who don't have supervision, and that's been one of the biggest headaches, I guess, is like, how are we going to figure that out? So we're currently looking at how we could use our staff members, some of our paras, some of our associates, to essentially go and provide some sort of, I don't want to call it daycare, but I think it would be assisted learning at churches, at libraries, at maybe the Reining Center. I'm just spitballing ideas out here. And that's my next plan of action here this afternoon, is to contact those places and see if we can have a place where students can socially distance and get some assisted, kind of get some help with some teaching and learning during those days. So that's a plan right now for the people who don't have supervision. If you've got if you got young kids and you're at work, or you're a single parent and you got to work, we want to find some sort of supervision for you. So we are looking at how we can use our staff and use other buildings in the Tama-Toledo area to have to help out our parents. So that covers the students who don't have supervision. The kids who, as I think about middle school and high school, some of the kids who don't need supervision, I do believe there's going to be some virtual learning pieces where students will be expected to do some work while at home. And, I guess I don't know the basics at this point. We know, like, first and foremost, we got to make sure kid safety in terms of having some place to go and not being stuck at home as a kindergartner is most important. As we get up to the upper grades, when students have more responsibility and are able, just to be at home by themselves, then we want to make sure that we're engaging them in learning while they're gone. And again, we'll lay out more of that by August 3rd. But Jen, I hope, during that 50% of the time, there will be some virtual learning components. We also know that some of our younger kids, what's most important is that they have some supervision. So I do feel like it's going to be blended in terms of virtual learning with our upper levels and even our lower levels, but then lower levels just providing our parents with assistance. So Carla Coates asked, will teachers live stream their classes? So I kind of talked about that earlier, Carla, and we're going to have some more conversation on that. I mentioned earlier that some teachers from other districts are really their unions are really getting involved here and saying that teachers should not be recorded. It's just totally, it's a mind shift for a lot of staff in a lot of districts. I want to be clear, I've not heard that complaint here, but in other districts where unions are strong, and we don't have unions anymore, but associations, in districts where the association is strong and you want to work on that, that making sure the ties between association and administration are good. There's been a lot of pushback on streaming whole classes, just simply because, is that legal? Is that moral? So some of those questions have popped up. So I don't know, Carla. I mentioned earlier there's 3 different options we're looking at. I encourage, I know I'm kind of answering some questions before I get to them. So I encourage anybody to kind of go back and listen to what I said. But that's one of our options. And I don't know, Carla, if it's going to look different in each building. And we talked about, I'll just quickly recap. One option could be live streaming. A second option could be, which I think we're still kind of looking at early dismissal, but that early dismissal could be some time for virtual lessons or recording videos or whatever it could be. The third option could be, do we find staff members who are specifically addressed or specifically tied to virtual learning, where that's their role? And I mentioned the example of 4th grade, and I don't know what this would look like in middle school, Carla, so haven't quite thought that through, but at elementary, they've got 5 teachers per grade. Could 4 teachers be the in-person teachers, while also assisting with some of the virtual learning? But could that 5th teacher be the virtual teacher, and they no longer have those in-person classes and they're committed to virtual learning all day? So I don't know. Again, I hope that kind of answers your question, Carla. I'm just going to keep going here, okay? When will school registration be? Also, will there be a back to school night? From Ashley. So I just got done meeting with Mary Mixdorf, and I can't recall right now if virtual registration is up and running, because I've heard, but Mary Mix, we've got a meeting. All of our secretaries are back on August 3rd. We've got a meeting with all secretaries to make sure that we are clear on what information needs to be collected during registration. The reason I'm saying there may be some pieces of registration that are already up, but the most important pieces that I'm looking at are some of the pieces with technology, with getting out hotspots, and with choosing the virtual versus the hybrid option. So we don't have those documents done right now, because I know we've gotten probably 5 questions here at the district already about, well, if I want to enroll my kid in virtual, can I do that right now? And we're not quite ready for that. That's going to be tied into some of our registration work. And we're actually working right now on developing a document that will allow you to sign your kid up to be a virtual learner as opposed to hybrid. So again, Ashley, kind of answering the question I can, will there be a back to school night? I don't think my guess would be, back to school night as we've known it. I don't anticipate that. I will say, during the week of the 10th through the 14th, our principals, administrators will be arranging meetings that week to really go over and answer all the specifics for different schools. So I do feel like, some of that registration stuff and some of the back to school night stuff will be kind of answered here in the coming weeks. I'm just going to take a drink of coffee real quick. These are great questions. I'm just need a little bit of liquid here. Hold on one second. Okay. Travis, will high school students be taking core classes only? Gosh, that's I don't have the answer to that, Travis. I really don't. I'm scared to say one way or the other. We have not got Mark Groth-Lucian. Our new high school principal. He's in a meeting right now. They may still be going. It started at 9:30. He's talking about that with his leadership team right now. At least that's one of the topics of discussion. That's such a, we know how important the non-core classes are to students. Sometimes that's what gets kids, that wakes kids up in the morning, that gets them out of bed. Whether it's music class or art class or any of those non-core classes. So I don't envision something where we take away the non-core classes, but there are some concerns with some of those classes. For example, we've heard a lot of concerns about with music specifically, with singing, with playing instruments. I used to play the trumpet as a kid, and when you play the trumpet, you're projecting your air, and your spit comes out of your trumpet. So I've heard some other districts who are real concerned about music, or if you're singing, you're projecting your voice. What does that look like? So, if I were to guess right now, we want to make sure that we still are doing our non-core classes, but there's some things we need to talk through. So Travis, I wish I had a full answer for you, and I know each of our buildings will be looking into those questions here in the coming weeks. Kim Oates asks, will you have school bags in classes? That is something we've talked about. Absolutely. We have talked about not using lockers because lockers is where a lot of the student interaction is. We have not committed yet to having school bags in class, but I would say there's definite conversation around that. So there's definitely some good conversation. If I had to guess, we're probably leaning that way. To allowing students to bring bags and not using lockers, because that's where the high traffic areas, the congestion happens. So I would guess that's a better chance than not that we allow bags in class, but again, nothing has been decided. Okay, Danielle, I think I kind of answered your question. Will parents be able to work with students at their own pace, or will students have to watch full lessons? Yeah, I kind of talked about that a couple times. I loved your question about will they be able to work at their own pace, because I believe, we're trying to be a district where every student has a plan, and every student, we teach students differently, and this is really going to push us on that. I would hope that we could in school we call it differentiation, and how do we make sure that we allow students to go at different paces. So, I would definitely hope that we have an opportunity to help parents out by students going at their own pace. You asked the question about full lessons taught by teachers online. I shared it a couple times, and I don't have it here in front of me, but we know the lower that we go in. So at the high school level, students can. The research says that students can be in front of a computer for like 3 hours. Like they can make it work. But as you go lower and lower into middle school and elementary, as we go down to lower elementary, like the research says that students can only handle 30 minutes to an hour tops, even for the day. So I don't envision, just say first grade, for example, I don't envision a full 6 hours worth of lessons being recorded, and then the expectation that virtual learning, they had to watch those 6 hours. I just don't see that happening. Somebody who's, our elementary teachers who are better experts than I am, maybe they would speak differently, but I just don't know if that would be the best. The research doesn't convince me that giving students 6 hours worth, lower elementary students, that many hours worth of video to watch would be the best thing. So I don't think when you ask about full lessons taught by teachers, I don't know if I see that. But again, this is just me speculating, giving you my best, what I know at this point. Jody, will those that do not have access to high-speed internet be given hotspots so they can do virtual learning? Do these hotspots work so far out in the country and the hills? So I just had a meeting with Mary Mixdorf this morning, who is our director of technology. She has 180 hotspots sitting outside her office right now. There is an application that she has created that will again go out with registration. For any family who does not have high-speed internet, we are asking them they will fill out an application. We are hoping, our goal is that every single parent, every single family who needs a access to a hotspot would be given one. We feel like 180 should cover a good chunk of the families who indicated that they did not have internet. In terms of your question about those so far out in the country in the hills, I think so. I think that's why we picked these specific hotspots, was to make sure that they worked, no matter where they were located. Again, Mary Mixdorf would be more the expert there, but I believe that the reason we picked these specific hotspots was to make sure that they would work for families who are outside of town, and for those who may struggle with other ways of getting internet. We believe these should work. Lindsay Schumacher, how long are we planning on having this 8A B-Day schedule? When there was talk about choosing all virtual learning for When there was talk about parents choosing all virtual learning for their children, it was through first quarter. Are we planning the same timeline for this? Do we have a day, second quarter, third quarter, about when we plan to go back to full time? So that's a really good question. We've talked about that. So most districts the districts I've talked to are either going month by month or they're going quarter by quarter. Some schools have trimesters, but that's pretty rare. So, right now we're looking at a quarter to quarter idea. A lot of this is going to have to do with how things go with COVID. Do things settle down? What you heard from the school board yesterday was if we have periods of weeks where there are no issues, we want to get kids back to school. So I'm going to hold them to that they made that comment yesterday that, I can't, there's some incubation period and being so long. And if we can meet those incubation periods with no cases, the sooner are we getting back. So I guess, Lindsay, the question goes back to, what's going on elsewhere, kind of gauging public health, legal counsel, and their feedback. But, I think this is going to be a quarter to quarter thing. Quarters fly by. And so I do believe I would like to give parents an option each quarter. And here again, this is just me thinking aloud, where we would give them that option of coming back or staying virtual or coming back to the hybrid option. In terms of your question about 8A B-Day, how long will that last for? Again, it's hard for me to know. It really depends on how things progress with COVID. But our hope, I really want to get kids back. And I know it seems like there are a lot of districts doing different things. But there is growing momentum. I want you to know this, and I shared this the other night. There's growing momentum for a number of schools doing the hybrid plan, that 50% capacity. Talking to the superintendents in our district, they're looking more and more at it. My hope is that we can get through COVID as quickly as possible. We get back to normal. Again, that's wishful thinking, but I would love to, as quickly as possible, bring kids back to 100%. But we also have to be mindful of what is being, of the data and the cases and if things are getting better or not. So in terms of how long we're planning, it's hard to say, but in terms of your second question, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, if I had to guess, that would be, we would look at it quarter by quarter. I just think month to month might be a little too quick. That'd be a lot of data collection, a lot of different decisions. To me, quarter makes more sense. Kim Motes, do parents get in trouble about absences if they get sick? So I'm guessing we will definitely work with parents and with students. If they have symptoms or they get, we always are on the side of our parents, in terms of just in general. If a kid is sick, we are always, and I've been preaching this to our admins and to our secretaries, is we always assume the positive with what our parents were telling us. So if a parent says their kid is sick, we have to own that. We have to just honor that. And so if a parent says they have symptoms or if they've got COVID, I don't know what all the nitty gritty is going to look like. And we've talked about our nurses working with public health, working with a COVID tracker that we want to hire. Those people will kind of talk about, they'll have some plans for student absences, but nobody's going to be in trouble for missing school or contracting COVID. We're going to work with them. And I hope you felt like we've done that in the past. I can't speak for the time before I got here, but in the last 2 years, the expectation is that we work with kids and parents, and that, sometimes you can get burned. Sometimes you can, I'm not going to lie. But I feel like 95% of the time when you work with parents, you work with kids on absences, it ends out for the better in the end. So yes, we are going to work with parents. How are we meeting IEP minutes? Will there be a choose if it is an A or B day? Student has therapy on a certain day. Okay, there's a lot going on here. Asking for a parent that asked me. Student has therapy on a certain day. Again, we're kind of getting in the details here if they're in the wrong group. Okay, so I'm guessing, we'll be pretty firm with A day, B day. Like, I don't think kids are going to be able to hop. The reason I think that initially is because we want to try to figure out if there is a case where it came from, and we want to be able to pinpoint those students. If we've got kids going back and forth, and I think that's kind of what your question is asking, is we just don't feel like that is going to help us out much because we cannot pinpoint where the issue came from. So I think we're going to be pretty firm. Even if a kid has to leave for an appointment or for therapy or whatever it might be, I don't foresee that kid going back to the A or B day group because they missed time. IEP minutes, that's something that the state is working with us. Every day I get an email from the special ed experts. They're helping us out big time by relaxing some of those requirements. I do know we have a special ed committee and an at-risk committee who is working through the issues with special ed. And when you say IEP, I'm also thinking about ELL students who also need those minutes. So again, they are, I assure you, I don't have the exact, I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact plan for meeting IEP minutes right now, but I can tell you we've got our best people working on that, and they are fully aware of what our options are. Will the school do temp checks prior to students entering the building? This is from Autumn. Autumn, great question. My understanding in talking to other districts is that they are not doing that. It's simply too cumbersome. I'm just going to use the elementary for example. If we go 50% capacity elementary, I'm just going to throw out 250 kids coming in the building in the morning. We just simply don't have the manpower to check 250 kids when they come in the morning to the elementary school on temp checks. In talking with Tama County Health, they support that idea. They understand that it's just not feasible in our setting to do temp checks prior to students entering the building. I do know some districts who are doing temp checks of staff members, though. So that's something I think if you were to ask me, what are we going to look closer at? I do believe we're going to look a little bit closer at temp checks for staff. But for students, we just, at this point, don't feel like that's something that's feasible. Also, again, I'm not a health expert. I think I've said that 4 or 5 times now, but the health experts I've talked to indicate that especially elementary kids can get fevers like quite often just from running around, and there's just a lot of people who are uneasy about saying COVID comes. I know it's one of the symptoms, but to make the jump that a student has a temperature to COVID is a pretty big jump that a lot of people are leery. They're uncomfortable making that call. So yeah, Autumn, I guess back to your question. Right now, we're not planning on temp checks for students. Virtual learning on off days. So Deb, virtual learning on off days and parents are working full time and unable to supervise their children. What is the plan or expectation? Okay. So I mentioned this earlier is that, and again, if anybody out there works in a church or works in a building that we could potentially use to, and the library was an example, or the Writing Center, or, that we could potentially use to have some assisted learning areas. We're looking at utilizing staff members to do some, again, I'm using air quotes here, some daycare of those students for parents who don't have supervision. So again, I did talk about that earlier. We're looking at that option, and the reason churches come into play is because I've had a couple churches who have reached out and said, I'm sorry, I got a little itch here, who have said that they are willing to support us with a location if we have, potentially have some staff members. And that's what we got to look at. That's what I've tasked our administrators with doing, is look at what staff members you have, and could we use some of them to help out with some sort of supervision of our students who do not have, who have parents who are working full-time and unable to supervise children. Hotspots typically go through cell phone towers. So if poor cell reception, then poor hotspot reception. Yeah, Mary Mixdorf, who's our director of technology, she did a lot of research, and she came and spoke at one of our school board meetings about why we chose the particular hotspot that we chose. She feels very strongly like those hotspots give us the best chance of being successful in terms of providing high-speed internet to our families. Again, I'm trusting her knowledge on those hotspots. Some people asked us why aren't we using, might have been Verizon or MediaCom, I can't remember, but we're using, and again, I don't know how that works. I hope I'm not saying that wrong, but she selected the hotspots that she believes are going to best meet the needs of our families, and I certainly hope, and I trust her opinion on that. Since all kids have the same last name in the house, will you go by household or by last name as to the split? Definitely going to look into that and do household as much as possible. We're going to try to do as many logistics on our end to make sure it helps our families out. So yes, so definitely not going to go. I know some districts are doing like A through J, K through Z, but we want to be real strategic with our students on the A-Day, B-Day split to make sure that we're making life as easy for parents as possible. Whew, you guys are making me thirsty here. Some great questions. What will happen when kids can't be on computers by doctor's order? Well, my initial thought is that we're gonna work with those families. We had decent success, I felt like, with our we handed out those packets of information to our families over the summer, and packets of work, and that worked. We had a lot of parents pick up those packets. It's hard to, I guess I would push on that question about what will happen when kids can't be on computers by doctor's order. I guess I would feel like that's probably something we deal with those students. We do a lot of stuff with iPads in our buildings already. So I'm guessing that those teachers who have worked with those students have already made accommodations in the past, and will continue to make accommodations for those students in the future if they can't be on computers. I guess for those families or for those students who can't be on computers, I guess I would probably look strongly at the A-Day, B-Day hybrid model. That way, at least you're getting 50% of your instruction in person. I think it would be pretty difficult to do some of the virtual stuff. I'm not saying it's impossible. We'll make it work, but those are my initial thoughts on if kids can't be on computers by doctor order. Fiber optic classes and now Zoom classes have been held for years, so I don't understand why this is a problem. Yeah, I guess I'm missing a little bit. So yeah, I definitely have seen Zoom classes at the college level. Absolutely been a part of those. Taught on part of those. And usually those Zoom classes are for, usually about, at least my experience, it's kind of like the hour lecture, and then clear specific projects are given that students go and work on. So I definitely think at the upper levels, upper middle school, high school levels, like the Zoom, those type of classes are definitely doable, and I that's kind of the model that we used a little bit at the end of the year, and I could see that definitely being something that we do pushing forward. So yeah, what we're seeing in college, I think, is going to funnel down to, right or wrong, some people like the model of Zoom classes at college. They're going to funnel down more to our high school and even upper middle school. What exactly will a COVID tracker be doing? Is that something public health could do instead of wasting taxpayer money? So I shared a job description yesterday. And, you know, the question about taxpayer money always gets a little interesting, doesn't it? So we believe this is a position. So we've got 3 nurses. We've got 1 nurse in each building. I've worked with school nurses for the last 15 years. Our school nurses are some of the most, they have a lot of stuff going on. They have a lot of stuff going on throughout the day. And I know this year is going to be crazy for them. We have had some discussions with our nurses. I do not believe it is in our best interest to make them take care of all of the tracing and documentation of all the COVID things that come up. I also know, talking to public health, like they have more than just students or schools to worry about. They're working with all public health, and a lot of their work is being done with some of the you know, the elderly who are going through this. And you've seen the cases. A lot of you have seen the numbers in our county. And again, I don't know what to believe, and I don't get too close into the details, but my understanding is that they're very much overworked right now. They got a lot going on, putting in lots of hours. I just don't know how we could ask public health with their limited resources to suddenly come and keep track of the 1,500 kids and the 150 staff members that we have here in our building. We believe it's a good use of money. I don't know exactly how many hours. I don't know exactly how many hours that it will be. We need to figure that out. And I said this yesterday. This is not a year-long commitment to this position. This is a month to month. If things start to go down, or if we realize after 2 months, like, we're not getting anything out of this position, then we'll let it go. So in the contract, it's going to be, you know, this is a month to month contract. This is nothing for 12 months. So I've got a lot of interest in the position already, which is great, but I've warned everybody that this is not a long-term job. So again, I know there's some concerns about COVID tracker, public health should be doing it, not wasting taxpayer money. Again, that's where you got to trust our opinion on this. I think it's something that other districts are looking into. It's something that, in my role, I gotta be clear with you guys. In my role, like, we need to make sure we protect ourselves in the district in terms of any legal action that could be taken. Documentation is huge. Like, it has become more. I spend probably a quarter of my time doing documentation of incidents, of meetings, of anything. To suddenly say that somebody's going to take on the role of tracking every single time a kid visits the nurse, and then the follow-up appointments and the isolation and who the kids were next to at home, on the bus, like, it's just, there's a lot going on that we believe it's the best. Documentation will help us in the long run if we're doing it right. And this is something that protects our district and our families if we had that position. Can you specifically talk about preschool program will work, because it's already a half-day program? Great question, Troy. Again, that's kind of getting in the weeds here with the elementary. I've got a meeting with our administrative staff next Monday morning, and I know that our administrators will be working through what preschool looks like. I kind of start off with this. I'm kind of answering some questions from the district perspective in terms of preschool and how half days work. Definitely going to be a question that Chris Collins, who's our assistant principal, who also oversees our preschool program, who is definitely working on that. Thank you, Dr. Okay, thank you. A staff/teacher, Deb's got another question here. A staff teacher with asymptomatic COVID positive, could they teach remotely for virtual learning? That's a great question. I think that a lot of that's going to come when we meet with our school district attorney on August 5th about how we can. And what gets tricky, what I found what gets really tricky is when a teacher or a staff member is sick, there's certain rules you have to follow. And you mentioned they're asymptomatic, but they're COVID positive, which makes it even trickier. But my experience working in schools is when a teacher is on leave, is sick, is pregnant, whatever it might be, or just had a baby, like the requirements we can have for those teachers become very minimal. And it's just kind of the way the legality is written is that we can't expect them to do too much. So I don't know what that's going to look like. If somebody is COVID positive, could we expect them to do some virtual teaching? I don't know. I mean, I love that idea that we would, and some teachers may feel compelled to do that, but I'm also worried about past practice in terms of us requiring that staff work when they are out. So great question. That's something we're going to need to look into. Have you sources masks and/or shields? Have we ordered masks and/or shields? So I mentioned earlier, yes, we've actually, the nurse has done a great job of ordering masks and shields already. One thing I pushed for yesterday at the school board meeting I got approval on was to move forward with a $10,000 purchase of at least one heavy duty or 3-ply mask for every student and every staff member. So we feel good, and and I talked to Mary Bogey, who's our finance director, and we're committed to doing what we need to do for our students and our staff. So yeah, I think that's the question. Are you purchasing masks and/or shields? And yes, we are. For our staff will have masks and shields. Our students will have masks, and then we'll keep looking. And that's where we're at right now, and we'll keep moving forward. Okay. Yep. Jennifer said, thanks for the information. I look forward to the information in the next few weeks. Definitely. Like I said, yep. I encourage you to be patient. Hopefully you've had a chance to tune into our last 2 school board meetings. We talked about a lot of these different ideas, but we'll continue to keep talking about them. Will the teachers be having the same content for kids in the classroom? So essentially only 3 different days of lesson plans per week. Gosh, Lindsay, great question again. I think we've got to, when we look at what we're teaching, we fall back on our essential standards and concepts. And so I think we need to be loose with our staff. It's going to have to look a little bit different whether or not you're in class or you're virtual. When you're in class, and that's what I mentioned yesterday. I mean, nothing that we've seen, no research says that a computer program, virtual learning, can replace being in front of a teacher. So we know that's going to be a difficulty, whether or not teachers can teach the same content. We have expectations of our staff that they're going to teach those essential standards and concepts to our kids. And it might look a little bit different from being in class versus being at home. So I guess my answer to you, Lindsay, is that we still expect them to teach them for their grade level what those essential concepts and standards are. But how it's delivered could look a little bit different in person versus being at home. So essentially 3 different days of lesson plans for a week. Yeah, that's the tricky part, is if you only get kids for 2 or 3 days, it's already a struggle to get through all the curriculum in 1 year, and you've probably heard that. So now that we're forced to only have half time with students and then some virtual learning, it makes it even that much more difficult. That's why we've encouraged our staff to really drill down to what's most important for their grade levels and for their content areas. And by drilling down and really going down to the most basic things that need to be taught, some of the other maybe activities that they're realizing maybe weren't the most important, we've been able to put those aside and focus on those most important topics. So yeah, 3 days of lesson plans, 3 days of in class, 2 or 3 days. It's definitely going to be a challenge, and that's why I think it's real important that we do give our staff plenty of time to think through that, which again goes back to the idea of allowing for that early dismissal. Again, we haven't decided that, but I think that's going to have to be something we keep in mind. To move our virtual education along more quickly. Okay. Some good questions here. Vacant business space around the community that could be used by the district. Oh, if you have a plan to staff them for child mentoring, tutoring, supervision. Okay. So I will, Danielle, thank you so much. I'm going to make sure I include you on my email here about looking for places, because that could help. So thank you. And Danielle is talking about needing, for places where our kids can be supervised, tutored, mentored. I appreciate you kind of putting the / because I agree. I don't want to say daycare, because that doesn't, I don't know if that sound doesn't sound very good, but the child mentoring, tutoring, supervision, yes, I will. Okay, I will reach out to you. Thank you. Okay. Looks like a lot of just comments back and forth. Great. Will parents get to choose A or B schedule? Wow, that's a great question. I think that needs to be a part of it. I could see it's going to be tricky to divvy up and keep in mind all the different factors in terms of putting kids in the A day or B day or the A group, B group. But I would hope we could choose is a strong word, because that sounds like anybody can just choose. I think there may be some circumstances where we allow parents to have some input, would be my best guess right now, Jennifer. Will parents get to choose A or B schedule? I think there's probably some things I'm not thinking about right now that we need to keep in mind for why. I think the most important thing is keeping families and relatives together. I don't know what relatives might be as strong, because there's a lot of relatives of each other, but family members together, I think that would be one of the best things for us to do. And if there's some circumstances for why Monday, Tuesday / Wednesday versus Thursday, Friday would be better, I guess I don't know, but I guess we could be open to that idea. The hot spots work quite well out in the boonies. Okay, good. Thanks, Jamie, for confirming that. What happens if a kid's parent or guardian tests COVID? Does the kid still go to school? Man, that's a great question. I feel like I shouldn't. I guess it's. I don't know that right now. I'm probably not gonna be able to give you the right answer. It probably depends how much contact the kid had with the guardian before they figure it out. But the odds are that kid is probably going to have been around, their parent enough to warrant us being real careful with that kid. So yeah. So I think in terms of how long the kid would not go to school, great question. I don't know that in terms of how long. Again, Shelby, I'm sorry. That's a great question. We'll definitely get that to you. What can we as parents do to help make the difficult transition as successful as possible for everyone? I think my first thought right now is we need to get the information in your hands as quickly as we have it, and then we'll need you to make sure you're, just like with anything that's new, that we make sure we're clearly communicating, because there's gonna be a lot of rumors out there. There's gonna be a lot of misinformation. What we as parents, okay, through the parent lens. Anybody who's watching, there's been about 100 viewers the whole time. I mean, if you could share the correct information and make sure parents understand some of these answers, that would be the first step. I know parents, I've gotten a few kind of upset parents about our decision. I want you to understand there was a lot of thought that went into that, and it wasn't easy. again, somebody who didn't attend the meetings would probably say, oh, you just decide you had that plan the whole time to do A Day, B Day. And that's not the case. If you would have watched Monday night, I went in there saying that I believed we should do, bring kids back. But then the more, I had about 3 follow-up meetings after that. And it does seem like schools around us are looking more and more to doing what we're doing. So I don't know. I guess the other thing, Amy, is to, again, I probably sound like a broken record, but parents continue to stay positive and continue to say, hey, they're doing the best they can, and they're taking your input into concern, and they're going to have opportunities for feedback. I would say, Amy, let others know that there are going to be opportunities for feedback. I encourage them to join the school board meeting next Monday. I encourage them to provide feedback. Did I say next Monday? I might have said that wrong. On the 3rd. 2 weeks. Provide feedback during that week. Come join the meetings. Ask your questions. Listen to the principals, and hopefully some of those things will be answered. MediaCom as a provider, be aware that I notice significant slowdown in speed and disconnections. Yeah, I'm not a health expert. I'm not a Wi-Fi expert, so I don't know. It's good to know, though. Disconnections when kids are at school on devices. Yeah, I have great faith. I'll say it again. Great faith in Mary Mixdorf that she's going to do the best. Given the situation, she's going to do the best that we can. How will preschool work? We answered that earlier. We're working on that. We appreciate transparency. Thank you. Gosh, it's been it's been over an hour. She wanted to know if there's a choice of Monday, Tuesday versus Thursday, Friday. Yeah, I think that's going to be in some certain circumstances. I don't think we're going to give every parent a choice just because it would just be too complicated. But if there's a legit reason why a parent needs Monday, Tuesday versus Thursday, Friday, I think we can look into that. Siblings. So Michelle asked about siblings being scheduled on the same A day or B day. And absolutely, yeah, that's our goal. And I said that a couple times. We're really hoping to have siblings scheduled on the same days. Same days. IEP goals. What if they don't meet these goals with the 50%? Are they going to be held back? No, we are going to do everything. And when we talk about special ed, just so you know the structure in our district, Shauna Smith oversees special ed. And then each school has like a special ed lead in their building. They have been working nonstop to figure out the IEP, the questions. So I don't want any parent with a student who's got an IEP to worry. That we will make sure we inform you, keep you in the loop, that we do everything we can to make sure you got the information and to make sure those students' needs are being met. So please don't worry. Again, and I think we had that kind of same question earlier. Yes, thank you. Whoever responded in my place, thank you so much. Under STC, I'm guessing that was either Steve or Shauna, but thank you. My daycare will not take children that have a fever. They must be fever-free for 24 hours. I hope that the schools would too. Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely get some protocols around fevers. Absolutely. A lot of preschool questions. We definitely need to, I'll make sure Chris knows and Brad know that we need to get out information about preschool. Oh gosh. Yes. Okay. So will students only be taking core classes? So we answered that question earlier. I don't think that's going to be the case. There's just too, again, here's just my gut, just thinking aloud, is that those other courses are important. I can't say we're going to be able to offer the full slate of non-core classes, but I do feel like we need to look at offering those other classes outside of the core classes. Now, and I guess I'm referring to like in person. If it's virtual, we might be looking a little bit more towards focus on the core classes. But I do believe in the importance in the non-core classes, and that, like I said, some kids that's what they're most excited about. So I would hate for those to completely go away. But again, I feel like that is, I believe that is something that we're going to continue to look at. So I'm kind of getting the same questions, quite honestly, and I'm getting some people answering behind the scenes, so thank you. So I talked about earlier about arts like band and choir. I'm hearing a lot of concerns and questions about band and choir because those are two activities where voices and breath and spit is there's a lot of that because you're projecting voice or you're projecting sound. So band and choir is probably one of the most difficult things for me to tell you about right now. I don't have the answer. I know there's a big concern in a lot of districts right now about band and choir, about what you can and can't do because of the air moving around and the germs and all that. So, hey Dana, gosh, what I'm going to do, I know you just want me to recap for those who just joined the meeting. We have talked about a ton of stuff over the last 75, 80 minutes. Here's what I'm going to do though, Dana, and for the rest of you, is when I finish, I'm going to upload this. And so you can watch through the whole video again. So anybody who missed it, anybody who's coming in late, I'm going to finish, upload, and it's going to be live. It's going to be on our Facebook. So another thing is Monday night, we will have another of these sessions from 5 to 6 o'clock. So you can come back and we'll probably just do it on Facebook Live since that seems to be easier. Okay. So, and we got a question about fall sports. We should get more guidance next week about fall sports. My understanding is that the state is going to be giving guidance next week. And once we have that guidance, our athletic directors and coaches are going to get together to discuss our options with fall sports. So hang tight on fall sports. With that being said, I am worn out, but this has been great. I hope I answer a lot of your questions. I know there's probably a lot more questions out there. I encourage you to go back, watch the video, share it with others, and keep in mind those different timelines that I gave you. There's gonna be plenty of time for more details, for feedback, and for you and to have meetings with admins. So I'm gonna get going. Thank you for your time. I hope this helped, and we'll be in touch. Okay, thank you. Have a good day, and go Trojans.